Ladies and gentlemen, hello. It is Wednesday. We are Debate Sensei. This is Matthew Shapiro, JD, Esquire.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, Jared.
I am Jared Kubika Miller, professor of communications, debate coach. I don't know where Tim Seavey is. He sent me a text right beforehand saying that he was just going Kerouac. So sounds intense. All right. I wish him luck. All right. So today we are talking about Congress debate. This is an event that we have not talked about yet. We're usually doing, the regular heads up, 1-on-1, 2-on-2 stuff. But Congress is a different beast, man. You got a bunch of different people going in and, talk about stuff. But the way that they choose topics is also really different. And not only that, but we are going to bring you the asynchronous variation. It's all conceptual right now. It's all in my head, and I'm going to get it out. I'm going to be showing Matt for the first time ever my ideas, and he's gonna see what he thinks about it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just a little recap for everyone. Go ahead. Go, Jared.
You got some experience with Congress, right?
Okay, I don't have any competitive experience with Congress. Disclosure to everyone out there. That being said, yeah, my first job out of as a coach, as a director, as basically a director of a team, I had a lot of students who would compete in Congress. So I've coached a bit, and then I also have judged quite a few Congress rounds, which, for all the, I'm sure hopefully we have some people out there who are really interested in Congress, know all about Congress. But Congress as a debate format or, at a forensics tournament, it's kind of a different form of debate. There's several students. There's Jared. You have to be specific with me, but I think there's about 10 students. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, like it depends on what the entry is, but I've seen. Yeah. I think the largest I've seen was like 12 or 13 in a room.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And normally at a synchronous tournament and a Congress round, you're assigned to a room. Your the student competitors or whatever are assigned to a room. They go to the room and they choose. Tell me if I'm wrong, Jared. I'm just trying to get this out as far as what people normally do at Congress. They go to the room and they choose what side they're on, which is unique, right? That's not like other forms of debate.
Well, let's go. So let's start at the very, very beginning. Okay. So there's a tournament. It's offering Congress. You're like, okay, I'll sign up for Congress. All right. You sign up for Congress. But what you don't know is at the same time, your coach and maybe some other competitors are actually submitting bills and resolutions to the tournament. All right. And so the tournament is receiving these bills and resolutions, and they're like, copy and paste from the actual congressional docket. Like some people just like take them and they summarize it, and
which can be found on the internet.
Right. You can find that's all public access stuff. And so they usually settle. So for instance, at the national tournament where they had Congress in the preliminary rounds, they had a docket of 15 bills and resolutions. And then what they do is when the tournament comes up, they set an agenda, which means they select from that docket which ones they're going to discuss. And from what I hear, it's usually like one bill or resolution per round. And that's when you have, 10 to 13 students in one room on one resolution, and they're allowed to choose which side they want to vote for it. They're not forced one way or the other. And then they follow parliamentary procedure to, be recognized by the chair, get up and speak, and then the questions follow, and they go through that. And so you could have a really, really lopsided bill, right?
As we were talking about that earlier, where Congress is the first time I've ever walked in around and saw, I think, 2 against 8 at some point. And it's kind of like, there's 2 neg and 3 or 8 AF. And so the AF speakers kind of get severely limited. I mean, if you want to hide and you don't want to actually speak, Congress is a good one to pick. And if you want to speak, Congress can be quite difficult if you have 6 people, 7 people on your side and 2 people on the other. So and by the way, the neg in that round or the 2-person team, the 2-person side, they speak all the time. I mean, essentially, they get a lot of opportunities to speak. So That's one thing, you know, we discussed. I mean, it's unique in my experience with Congress. You don't walk into a, you know, any other sort of round and see like a straight mismatch by number of competitors. So
Yeah.
what do you think,
So-
Jared? How's that? Yeah, go ahead.
So the thing is that now with the pandemic going on, you know, there's these tournaments that they want to offer Congress, and they're having trouble with, you know, like stuff in the background going on that they don't want to happen. You know what I mean? It's like members of the family that are, you know, not paying attention to the fact that their little brother or son or daughter or something like that.
It's
is,
hard to
you know,
control an environment like that, you know?
So I was, you know, talking with somebody, and they thought that what I was doing with the asynchronous debate could be transferred over to Congress. And so I looked at the rules and procedures, and I started to draw up some ideas. And so I was just going to show you what it is. So, like, remember, you start with a docket, right? So let me show you let me show everybody what I did. Okay. So what I did was I went to the national tournament, and I opened up a spreadsheet. Okay. And so what you're seeing is the list that's highlighted right there. Those are the 15 bills and resolutions from the tournament there.
The
You can
vertical
look at
A column. The vertical A
Yeah,
column.
right here.
Yeah.
So the very first one is the dual directive to drastically deal with discrimination and debt.
I'm going to drag that A bar out a little bit or something.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can do that.
But
There
no,
you go.
you can see it right here. You can see it up at the top right here.
Perfect.
See? There it is.
I see
right
that
there.
one. I see that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so all I did was I went and got all of those. Okay. And I just pasted them down here in these cells right here. So there's 15 different bills and resolutions. You can see a bill or a resolution. And then I just called them members. I created 15 members. So I decided, I just went big because I knew you could scale it down. And then what I did was I had them all vote randomly. A 0 is a nay and a 1 is a yay, right? So for each one, and I randomly assigned them. So basically, I kind of simulated 15 people voting on 15 bills. And so what that does is that you can create an agenda with that. Take a look. Like I could, I forgot to say over here, I took those random votes right there, it resulted in these results right here. I took the ones that were most even. So if the vote was 7-8, I just chose those ones because now you have the same number of speakers on both sides, or roughly the same number of speakers on both sides, right? And now you could take all those people and you could organize them into speaking lists, and you just take the 5 top, most even matched bills, and now you're talking about the ones with the most evenly matched sides. And now you could do an entire list going top to bottom. So what you got to do is imagine that each one of these is like a video in a playlist. And you have the first person is called the authorship, and then you have the first con, and then second pro, and then second con. I'm just going down the B list right there. See that? And so you could go back and forth. You could do that 15 times each, but if you limit each speaker to 3 speeches maximum across the 5 bills, you get something looking like this right here. Where, look, it's like, about 8 speeches each for each bill going back and forth. Each person gets 3 speeches. And like you could vary, like if they're early or late, or you know what I mean, like where they are speaking on it and stuff like that. So you could, have a variety, and then, man, it should yield some pretty damn good data. You know what I mean, in order to determine who is. Oh, hello. It should yield some pretty good data as to who. Is winning in each particular round, or who isn't. And we must have lost Matt. That's really interesting. So I'm not sure what happened to him, but I don't need him. I can keep on going and talking about this. So there's a few things that this solves. Okay, so one of the things that this solves is that we got him back. Excellent. Good to see you again.
Sorry about that, everybody.
So. What I was just saying is that this setup, I don't know, what did you see? Did you see where I got down to the 3 speaker limit or anything like that?
I did not catch the end of what you were showing.
Oh yeah.
I saw the 15 and the 15, and I saw that you selected the sides that had the even matched participants. And
But then you could take, instead of having 15 speeches for each, you could limit it to about 7 or 8 speeches, and every single debater will get 3 speeches across all 5 rounds. And so instead of just talking about 3 bills, now we're talking about 5, right? So that's one adaptation that you're doing, is you're kind of like, if you increase the number of bills, and now you can basically just require every single person has 3 speeches, and you could vary where they speak, early, middle, late in the round, right? So they'll have one of each. And now that should, what I'm saying is that should yield some pretty rich data. You should be able to come up with, outcomes based off of that, because you have a nice, good variety of speeches on, and different opponents and things like that.
Even number. I mean, I think one point of opposition, not to any. I mean, I first of all, I appreciate what you're saying, in that, some people might look at Congress and say, first of all, we're not trying to eliminate regular Congress.
Yeah.
As soon as we can all get back to going to school and getting 15 people in a room, and the moderator and all that, then we're going to do that. But until then, this is one way we're approaching it, and we're also kind of putting a spin on it. And the question is that I have to you, Jared, how does it affect the performance aspect or the speaker points, where you may have some gunners who go to Congress for the specific reason of having way more opportunities to speak, taking advantage, say, of difficult sides where they know people aren't good. When you look at a resolution and you're like, most people are going to go AF. So I'm going to go neg, because I want to just get up there and I want my opportunity to speak 5 times. You're kind of maybe retracting a little bit from that, and in maybe a different light. If you don't know something, joining a side that has 10 people on it is like the way to go, because you can kind of say a little bit and then sit back down and just kind of not say anything. Now, these are just elements of Congress that kind of go away with what you're doing. Good, bad, why?
Yeah, well, it seems like everything that you described was like sort of the games playing part of Congress, rather than the research and the, what I mean, like the critical thinking part. Like none of those elements seem to be absent. It's just, it's like, oh, how do I set aside what I actually believe in order to play this game? I'm like, well, maybe it's nice that we don't have to set that aside, that you can be honest with what you believe and just, like speak from the heart. I think I kind of like that, and not only that, but you could work that into one of the rounds, right? Like if I was going back to this spreadsheet, like one of them was like 3 to 12, and maybe you do. The vote was 3 to 12. 3 people were voting in favor of it, and 12 people were voting against it, right? And so, it would be up to the presiding officer. There's still a presiding officer, but I think the presiding officer will probably be a little bit more of an admin role. Might be supplied by the tournament.
Yeah,
that's one thing I don't like that this adaptation.
Yes. In fact, in my experience, I'm glad we're hitting this right about the halfway point, because I think this is obviously I was wondering what the moderator or you're right, presiding officer there in Congress. For those of you who may not know, there are, as we said, 10 to 13 participants, but one of them is neither AF nor neg, and they are something called Jared. You said the presiding officer. Is that I think
the presiding officer can speak. I think
they speak a lot. They are. Yeah, it's their room.
I mean, on the bill, I think they can speak on it. I think, but I might be wrong. I might be wrong about that. I'll be honest.
I do know when you go into a Congress round, I mean, it's their room. It really does feel like, even as the judge, there's some adult in the room. There's the student competitor who's the presiding officer, basically goes and takes charge of the entire room, and is like. And that's part of, as the judge, there's 2 ballots. Basically, there's the ballots for the competitors who are AF and NEG, and there's the ballots for the presiding officers, and even they get at the end of the tournament, a winner. So,
Yeah.
one thing that concerns me, I'm just curious to see how it plays out, is as you were just describing, where in real time, when you have a room full of 15 people, it's funny because the officer in the room, they take control of the room. They are a judge.
Yeah.
They remind me that it's almost like it's really cool. It's a cool element of Congress that, like, you have the student who's kind of in charge of the other students. Not in charge. They're just the chair.
Yeah,
they're overseeing.
Just running the
What
meeting,
role
right?
what role will they play, in an asynchronous Congress tournament? Because that one of their jobs, for instance, is to pick the next speaker. Essentially,
Right.
That's their job, is to be like, oh, like, we recognize Mrs. or Mr. this, and you stand up, and that whole process, I guess, is still in the hands of a moderator. They're almost maybe like a back end administrator of the tournament at that point. No.
Right, yeah, because like they're just kind of basing it off of just raw data. You know what I mean? They're just like they're taking the votes and they're putting it through a priority. They're still using precedent and recency in order to decide who goes. You know what I mean? But now it's just on a sheet of paper rather than like live and in person. So it is a very different skill set, and it does seem more. It lends itself more to tournament administration than it does any sort of parliamentary procedure. And so I do think that is an adaptation that like I respect that people would kind of miss that component of it, and I get it. But what you're able to gain though is more speeches on more topics and better variety, and so and just. It's more equity too. You know what I mean? It's like it's just more even-handed for people because it's not based on their on their internet and not based on their reaction time to stand up first.
No, everything that applies to every other debate format we've talked about on this podcast does lend itself to the advantages of asynchronous debate. Still lend themselves to this because. Imagine how hard it is to coordinate with 1 or 2 or 4 people for a debate, and hopefully all of their families are not using all the Netflix in the background and not raging in the kitchen while they're trying to speak, and not having connection problems or computer problems between 4 people. That's hard enough. And a judge. Yeah. I mean, that's hard. And now Congress is more than all the others. I mean, honestly. More than RT, more than anything. There's 10, 15 people in this room. So like just the chance that one or more suffers an internet problem or any sort of, the equity part you're talking about where it really levels the playing field. If all you're required to do is record a video, whether it be on your phone or a computer or a really nice camera, like you just upload a file. Everyone will have access to the internet for some duration of time to upload that file. That will be it will be clear. It will be clean. All the connection problems we're even experiencing tonight, if we did this via direct video file, we wouldn't have that problem. But
right.
So that will be better. And in Congress, I can imagine some synchronous tournaments. They're being frustrated judges and competitors when there's just a lot of failure, internet failure, computer failure.
Yeah. But the cool thing is how the schedule works, right? So when you have all this set up before the first speech starts, and so now you give some type, and this first authorship for all 5 bills would be submitted at the same time, all right? So it would be and so. Then you have a few days for questions to be sent and answered, and then the next one is due, and everyone is submitting it at the same time. So each one of these lines, each one of the rows, constitutes a due date, basically.
2, 3, 4, 5. Each one of those is a due date.
Yeah. So like, just imagine that it's starting here, and then like I don't know, every 3 or 4 days, that is when there. And so 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, yeah. And so, like you're talking about, this process could take like 3 or 4 weeks right here to get all of these done. And the awesome part is now, like, coaches, they could give individual attention to these 5 members here, right? Member 3 is kind of, it's cool. They could be on a self-guided research or something like that, where member 2 needs like the really hands-on coaching on this due date. And then you can move on to the, even though this would take 3 or 4 weeks, as like member 2 would have on the very first day, and then they have like a week and a half off until they have to go and watch the videos, make their response, stuff like that.
I mean, I don't mean to keep harping on the things we've discussed, but in case anyone doesn't know, anytime we talk about asynchronous, that it means, time doesn't matter. What does that mean? Well, in a regular Congress round, everyone's in a room together. The reason why the presiding officer is so important is to get everyone under control to start the round off. In this context, and by the way, it all happens live time, meaning that's why synchronous, we mean at the same time. All of them are competing at the same time. Asynchronous is going to take, like Jared just said, weeks. I mean, if every single speech, the PO speaks, they're like, hey, oye, oye, this is the first thing we're going to do. The floor goes open. That would be the first speech almost. You know what I mean? And then the 3 days go by, or maybe not so much for that first one, and then the first affirmative goes, and then 2 days goes by, and in that 2 days, the neg gets to watch it and make their answer and record their video and upload their file, and then the sequence Jared was just showing, just in case anyone doesn't know, this would take days. It's not all at the same time. And the advantage is,
I've been thinking, we keep saying asynchronous, and people don't quite understand. They think asynchronous, but they still think that you're going in order. So I actually have an idea.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of switching it up and I don't know, start calling it polychronic.
Yeah. Much better name.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty. So this harkens to the difference between monochronic and polychronic societies, where monochronic is one at a time, all in order, blah blah blah. That's like debate right now. Polychronic is where many things can happen simultaneously. People are frequently late to appointments, but it's not considered rude. So it usually is a much more laid back sort of attitude toward time than monochronic cultures. And Americans are very monochronic. The Germans are very monochronic, right? And other societies that are very polychronic. You might, like, people use terms like island time for polychronic societies or things like that, where lots of things could happen. You spend a little bit of extra time with this person. Those relationships are important. I think that better captures what we're doing with this, is because.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. I
mean, you're talking, when we were talking about, the focus on when you have that chart up and you say each one of these is a due date. What you're not seeing is that, there might be 4 resolutions that all start at that one time.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's kind of hard to explain.
These 5 in the B, C, D, and E, the very top row, is the wording of the resolution. And so all 5 of those they're being debated at the same time. And so so people kind of don't understand that when we use the term asynchronous. They're like, no, you said it's, one after another. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not. So when
it helps explain why it takes 3 days between submission dates, because basically what we're saying is, in 3 days, you need to do an AF, an AF, and an egg, and an egg, in that time. Every time the next one ticks over, whatever round you're an AF in, you have to watch and respond to. And anything you're an egg in, you have to wait for the AF to come out in. But you're still, in somehow or capacity, you are involved in multiple rounds at the same time. But you have a few days or you have your island time to do them when you want. The only thing that is important is that they are all submitted at the next, checkpoint date, which is in 3 days or a week or
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
there's 5 speeches that all come in at the same time on 5 different topics, and then next, in 3 days, another 5 speeches will come in that progress all 5 debates at the same time. So when you say at the same time, people are like, "But it's asynchronous." I'm like, okay, maybe
the submission date is on the same moment. Like they're all due on Thursday at 5 p.m., but you have like 4 different things you need to do. Yeah. And just, this translates, we're talking about Congress today, but this works for all the various types of debate. And there's even, new ones that are, when I say new ones, I mean, we're talking about just time allocations and stuff like that. But the theory is if you are able to just span these things out and basically you do these things that when we see a hybrid tournament, in the future, when we're all allowed to go to a school, imagine for the 6 weeks leading up to the tournament, if you were competing in various debates and then you go to the tournament and then do your live your real seated debate, your real LD debate, and you go in and you do your thing that we are always so used to. And then you finally have this awards ceremony where people are getting awards for both the conventional, the ones they won that day, and there's a whole selection of categories for the ones that they've been working on for the last 6 weeks that they did before they ever showed up on that last day.
Yeah.
And that's the real future goal that we kind of push. We realize in coronavirus land that this is the only alternative right now. So it seems like everyone's just trying to we are only doing this. Well, yeah, right now we're only doing this, but there's a seat at the table, we believe, in the future for this type of preparation debate where there's less focus on your in the moment, can you do it, and more focus on will you put in the time and research to literally beat this person based on what you can find using the power of the internet. I mean, I've said this several times before, but I think we should be indulging in our technology to help and broadening horizons in every way.
You know what I mean? Make our life easier rather than faster and more productive and more work. It's kind of let's do the same.
It will be more work. It will be more work. We're adding events to a tournament of the future. I mean, so it's more work, but it's it's a different skill. And we're saying that it's a good skill just like the other one's a good skill. And we all treasure the other skills. We all treasure the real-time debate in the flesh. But there's just some components where, we talk about gaming the system a little bit. A good experienced debater may be able to just poker face and bluff and have all these tricks to beat inexperienced debaters. Well, in an asynchronous debate, hopefully the playing field may be a little bit more level because, all the tricks in the world, I have all the time to come up with a response. I don't have to just, rest on my talent and my elasticity in the moment, which is good. I mean, they're both important because that also puts pressure on the bully Jared's out there who can just flip some words around and make me feel stupid. You know what I mean? That's a thing. And it's good to know how to do that. It's good to know how to avoid that. It's good to know those skills. Those are real skills. But Jared's also the guy who will out prepare you. So he will also do good in asynchronous tournaments because he will prepare. And those are both skills that Jared has that everyone should seek to also have. So that's my opinion. You have to make up your own mind. Yeah, I've never been I suppose I did my fair share of blindsiding people in debates. You know what I mean? But I never particularly liked that. I mean, we would come in and you knew we were going to talk about legalizing marijuana. You have to be savvy. You have to be a savvy debater. And if someone is able to bully you with some trick, some one-trick pony just bullies you, well, hey, hopefully you better learn how to deal with that. And because these are all skills. They're all good skills. So I want to always make that clear. This particular sort of technological solution helps solve a little bit of that too, because it reduces that ability. It kind of separates people and lets them have their own sort of environment and safe space to think and prepare and slow down and stuff like that without the pressure of your opponent or your coach or the time or the judge on you. You know what I mean? It's
it just feels, I don't know, it just feels so much more refreshing.
You could get sentence by sentence refutation. You could just stop a video and answer every single argument. So
I think polychronic actually is a better term for it.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but we're relaxed, slow down. We're thinking about being considerate and stuff like that. It's very consistent with that. I like it a lot. Polychronic debate. Yeah, there we go.
Sign me up.
Yep. Anyone who uses that has to give me a quarter. All right, every time that you say it. Yeah. Okay. Hey, we got to get going, buddy. Yeah. Like I own that. No, I don't. I would love it if everyone uses that. Gets lost to the ages about where it even came from. All right. So, hey, thank you, everyone. We're going to come back next week. We'll talk about something else. All right. We have Matt Shapiro, Esquire. I am Jared Miller, your debate coach. And so let me get this going. We'll see you next week. All right, everyone. Bye.